The transport ship descended through the pink clouds of Verath Prime, its engines humming quietly as it approached the landing zone. Inside the cockpit, Commander Hyuk watched the alien landscape unfold beneath him. Purple forests stretched across rolling hills, and 3 moons hung visible in the daytime sky. It was beautiful, he thought. They always were. Landing sequence initiated, said Jiwon from the navigation console. Her fingers moved across the controls with practiced ease. Ground temperature is comfortable. Atmosphere is breathable. The Verath delegation is waiting for us. Hyuk nodded and stood up, adjusting his uniform. Behind him, Daeho finished his final checks on the ship's systems. The engineer was always thorough, always careful. It was why Hyuk trusted him completely. Remember, Hyuk said to his crew, we are here as friends. We smile, we listen, and we show them we mean no harm. The ship touched down with barely a shudder. Through the viewport, Hyuk could see the Verath waiting. They were tall beings nearly 8 feet in height with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Their forearms moved in graceful patterns as they communicated with each other. They wore no clothes but had elaborate patterns painted across their bodies. The boarding ramp extended, and Hyuk led his team out into the alien air. It smelled sweet like flowers he couldn't name. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth standard, making each step feel just a bit easier. Welcome, travelers from distant stars, said the lead Verath. Her voice had a musical quality that the translation device rendered into something approximating warmth. I am Elder Thessia of the Verath Council. We have watched your approach with great interest. Hyuk bowed respectfully. Thank you for receiving us, Elder Thessia. I am Commander Hyuk of the human vessel Endeavor. We come in peace, seeking friendship and understanding between our peoples. The greeting ceremony lasted an hour. The Verath performed traditional songs and showed the humans through their main settlement. The buildings were grown rather than built, shaped from living plants into structures that breathed and moved gently in the wind. It was unlike anything the humans had seen before, though Hyuk had seen many strange things in his travels. Jiwon was fascinated by everything. She asked endless questions about the Verath biology, their history, their technology. The Verath scientists seemed equally curious about humanity. They wanted to know about Earth, about human culture, about how such a young species had achieved faster-than-light travel. We are quick learners, Hyuk explained diplomatically. When faced with challenges, humans adapt rapidly. Over the following weeks, more human ships arrived. They brought prefabricated buildings, farming equipment, medical supplies, and hundreds of colonists. The Verath watched as a human settlement took shape near their own city. The humans worked with impressive speed, assembling structures in days that would have taken the Verath months to grow. Minji, a young botanist, spent her days studying the native plants. She collected samples, ran tests, and filled notebooks with sketches and observations. The Verath botanists welcomed her enthusiasm, though they found her method strange. She seemed to be cataloging everything, measuring growth rates, testing soil compositions in dozens of locations. Why do you need so much data? One Verath scientist asked her. Understanding the environment helps us live in harmony with it, Minji replied with a bright smile. We want to be good neighbors. Sangwoo worked as a cultural liaison, teaching the Verath about human customs while learning about theirs. He organized joint festivals, facilitated trade discussions, and helped resolve small misunderstandings before they became problems. The Verath found him charming and genuine, but some Verath noticed peculiar things about the human settlement. The buildings were sturdy, far more robust than necessary for the mild climate. The humans dug deep basements and installed heavy doors. They built large storage facilities and filled them with supplies, food, water, medicine, fuel, far more than a new colony would typically need. Elder Thessia mentioned this during a council meeting. They build as if preparing for a siege, she observed. Yet they are friendly and open. What do they fear? Perhaps it is simply their way, another elder suggested. They are a young species. Perhaps they are cautious by nature. The human population grew. Families arrived with children who played in the purple forests and made friends with young Verath. Human engineers shared their technology freely, helping the Verath improve their power systems and communications. Human doctors worked alongside Verath healers, combining their knowledge to treat illnesses more effectively. Taijin, a human architect, oversaw the construction of a large community center where both species could gather. He designed it with Verath aesthetic sensibilities in mind, but the foundation was pure human engineering, deep reinforced, and strong enough to withstand forces that Verath Prime had never experienced. "You humans build everything so solid," a Verath builder commented, watching Taejin inspect the foundation for the third time. "Better safe than sorry," Taejin replied. "It's an old human saying. It means we prefer to be over-prepared rather than caught unprepared." 3 months after the first landing, the human settlement had become a proper town. Nearly 2,000 humans now called Verath Prime home. They had farms producing food, workshops manufacturing goods, and schools teaching both human and Verath children. The integration seemed perfect, yet the peculiarities continued. Human ships arrived and departed on precise schedules, always carrying specific types of cargo. The humans built communication arrays that seemed more powerful than necessary for simple colony operations. They conducted surveys of the surrounding space with equipment far more advanced than their other technology suggested. Yunho, a human trader, became a common sight in the Verath markets. He bought and sold goods, learned the local language better than most humans, and seemed genuinely interested in Verath culture. He made many friends among the Verath merchants. One friend was Tikresh, a Quillari trader who visited Verath Prime regularly. The Quillari were an insectoid species known throughout the galaxy for their analytical minds and pattern recognition abilities. Tikresh had been trading with the Verath for years and had seen many other species come and go. "The humans are different," Tikresh told Yunho one evening as they shared a meal. "I have watched many species establish colonies. The humans move with purpose. Every action seems part of a larger plan." Yunho laughed. "We just like to be organized. Humans are planners by nature." But Tikresh wasn't convinced. She had begun to notice patterns that troubled her. The same types of buildings appeared in every human settlement she visited. The same questions were asked by human diplomats. The same peculiar over-preparation characterized every colony. Back on the Endeavor, which remained in orbit above Verath Prime, Hayuk met with his senior staff in the conference room. Jiwon presented her latest survey data. Taeho reported on the settlement's infrastructure progress. So-hyun, the colony administrator, discussed population distribution and resource allocation. "Timeline?" Hayuk asked. "We are ahead of schedule," So-hyun replied. "If we maintain current progress, we will be fully operational in another 3 months." Hyuk nodded slowly. "Good. Let's hope we have that much time." The others in the room shared his somber expression. They knew what Hyuk meant, even if the Verath did not. Every human in the settlement knew. It was the knowledge that shaped every decision they made, every building they constructed, every friendship they formed. They knew that this beautiful world, like all the worlds before it, was temporary. They knew that eventually they would have to leave. They always did. The question was never if they would flee. The question was only when. 6 months had passed since the humans first landed on Verath Prime. The settlement had grown into a small city, bustling with activity and commerce. Human and Verath children played together in the streets. Mixed markets sold goods from both cultures. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. Tikresh stood in the central plaza, her compound eyes watching the flow of activity around her. As a Quillari, she saw the world differently than most species. Where others saw random events, she saw patterns. Where others saw coincidence, she saw connections. And what she was seeing now troubled her deeply. She had been collecting data for months, traveling between different worlds where humans had established settlements. Every colony followed the same template. The humans would arrive, friendly and eager to trade. They would build quickly, always with the same sturdy construction. They would integrate into local society, making friends and contributing to the community. But beneath the surface, something else was happening. "The foundation structures are identical," she muttered to herself, reviewing her notes on a small data pad. "Storage facilities in the same locations. Communication arrays with the same specifications. It's too consistent to be coincidence." A Verath merchant approached her stall. "Tikresh, my friend, you seem distracted today. Is the trade going poorly?" No, Tikresh replied quickly. "Just thinking about patterns. Tell me, have you noticed anything unusual about the human construction projects?" The Verath considered this. "They build strong, very strong. But they are from a harsh world, or so they say. Perhaps they simply prefer solid structures." Tikresh clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. "Perhaps. But she had seen the records. Earth, the human homeworld, was listed in the Galactic database as having moderate conditions. Nothing that would explain such over-engineering. Across the city, Tejan supervised the construction of a new residential complex. The building would house 50 human families, with modern amenities and comfortable living spaces. But beneath the comfortable exterior was something else entirely. The emergency evacuation tunnels are complete, Deho reported, checking his datapad. They connect to the main transit hub and the spaceport. In an emergency, we can evacuate all residents in under 20 minutes. Tejan nodded approvingly. Good work. What about the structural reinforcement? Triple redundancy on all support systems. The building can withstand forces far beyond what this planet's weather could produce. It could probably survive a direct orbital strike, at least for a while. Let's hope it never needs to, Tejan said quietly. A young Verath architect named Korath worked with them. He had learned much from the humans over the past months, but some things still confused him. Tejan, may I ask a question? Of course. Why do we build these tunnels? Verath Prime has no earthquakes, no severe storms. What emergency are you preparing for? Tejan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. It's just human nature, Korath. We like to be prepared for anything. Better to have safety measures you never need than to need them and not have them. Korath accepted this answer, but he filed it away in his memory alongside all the other small strangeness about human behavior. In the orbital station above Verath Prime, Jiwan analyzed deep space sensor data. The Endeavor's sensors were far more sophisticated than the Verath knew. They could detect objects and anomalies at incredible distances, constantly scanning, always watching. Anything? Hyuk asked, entering the sensor bay. Nothing new, Jiwan replied, though her expression remained tense. The background readings are stable. No changes in the expected patterns. That's good news. For now, Jiwan added. But you know how quickly things can change. We've seen it before, Hyuk did know. They all knew. It was the constant weight they carried, the knowledge they could never share with their new friends. Down in the settlement, Minji worked in her botanical garden. She had created a beautiful space filled with both earth plants and native Verath flora. Visitors loved to walk through the garden, admiring the strange combinations of familiar and alien. But Minji's garden served another purpose. Every plant was chosen carefully. Fast-growing species that could provide food quickly, hardy plants that required minimal care, species that could be transplanted easily, that could survive in various environments. She was building a portable ecosystem, one that could be packed and moved at a moment's notice. Sang-woo noticed her examining a particular type of root vegetable, making notes about its growth rate and nutritional value. Always working, he commented with a smile. These could be valuable, Minji replied. They grow fast, they're nutritious, and they adapt to different soils easily. If we ever needed to start fresh somewhere, these would be among the first things I'd want to bring. Sang-woo's smile faded slightly. He understood what she wasn't saying. Every human understood. That evening, Tikeresh invited Yunho to share a meal at a quiet restaurant on the edge of the city. They had become genuine friends over the months, and Yunho enjoyed her company. But tonight he noticed she seemed troubled. What's on your mind? He asked. Tikeresh was silent for a long moment, studying her food. Finally she spoke. I have been observing something, Yunho. A pattern across multiple worlds. Your people arrive, they build, they integrate. But the way you build, the things you prepare for, it's as if you're not planning to stay. Yunho's expression shifted just for a fraction of a second. A flash of something, concern perhaps, or calculation. Then he laughed, but it sounded forced. We're just thorough, Tikeresh. Humans like to be prepared. For what? Tikeresh pressed. I have analyzed your construction patterns, your supply chains, your communication networks. Every human colony has the same features. Deep storage, redundant power systems, evacuation routes that you think nobody notices. What are you preparing for? Yunho set down his utensils carefully. We've learned from experience that it's better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. It's just our culture. And the way your diplomats always ask about local star charts, about resource distribution in nearby systems, about migration patterns of native species. Tikeresh leaned forward. I have friends among many species, Yunho. The humans ask the same questions everywhere. Why? You're seeing patterns that aren't there, Yunho said, but his voice lacked conviction. We're explorers. We're curious. That's all. Tikeresh didn't believe him, and from the look in his eyes, Yunho knew it. They finished their meal in uncomfortable silence. After leaving the restaurant, Yunho immediately contacted Hyuk through a secure channel. "We have a problem. Tikresh has been analyzing our settlement patterns. She's starting to ask difficult questions." In his quarters on the Endeavor, Hyuk closed his eyes and sighed. This always happened eventually. Someone always noticed. How much does she know? She's identified the construction patterns, the supply chains, the survey protocols. She hasn't figured out why yet, but she knows we're preparing for something. Keep an eye on the situation. If she gets too close to the truth, we may need to brief her. We can't afford panic, but we also can't afford to lose potential allies if things go wrong. Understood. Hyuk ended the call and stood at the window of his quarters, looking down at Vareth Prime. The planet turned slowly beneath him, beautiful and peaceful. The Vareth had been kind hosts. The humans had made real friends here. In another life, under different circumstances, this could have been a permanent home. But Hyuk knew better. He had learned long ago not to get too attached to any place. They were all temporary. They were all just stops along an endless journey. He pulled up a star chart on his console, studying the routes beyond Vareth Prime. The next waypoint was already identified, already surveyed. When the time came, and it would come, they would need to move quickly. In her small apartment, Tikresh compiled her data into a comprehensive report. The evidence was clear, even if the reason remained mysterious. The humans were hiding something big, something that explained why a friendly, generous species felt the need to build escape routes into every structure and maintain a constant state of readiness. She had two choices. She could take her findings to the Vareth Council, possibly causing unnecessary alarm, or she could continue investigating quietly, gathering more evidence until she understood the full picture. The decision was made for her the next day when Elder Thessia personally requested a meeting. "Your observations about the human settlement patterns have not gone unnoticed," the Elder said. "Others on the Council have expressed similar concerns. We need your analysis, Tikresh. We need to know if our human friends pose a danger to Vareth Prime." Tikresh considered her words carefully. "I do not believe they pose a danger, Elder. But I do believe they are preparing for something they have not shared with us." "Then we must find out what," Elder Thessia decided. "Continue your investigation. Report your findings directly to me. We must know the truth." The emergency meeting was called at midnight ship time. Hyuk entered the secure conference room to find his senior staff already assembled. Jiwon looked pale. Daeho was checking his datapad repeatedly, as if hoping the numbers would change. So-hyun sat with her hands folded tightly on the table. "Show me," Hyuk said simply. Jiwon activated the holographic display. A three-dimensional map of local space appeared above the table, covered in dots and lines representing stars, planets, and known objects. But dominating the display was something else, a red mass moving slowly but steadily through the outer reaches of the system. "We detected it 6 hours ago," Jiwon said, her voice tight. "At first we thought it was a sensor error, but multiple confirmations verify it. The signature is unmistakable." "How long do we have?" Hyuk asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. "Based on current trajectory and speed, it will reach the inner system in approximately 4 days. Vareth Prime itself, 5 days, maybe 6 if we're lucky." The room fell silent. 5 days, they had hoped for more time. They always hoped for more time. Daeho spoke up. "I've already initiated the evacuation protocols. The colonists don't know yet, but all systems are ready. We can begin loading ships within the hour." "Do it," Hyuk ordered. "But keep it quiet for now. We need to brief the Council first. They deserve to know what's coming." So-hyun looked up. "They won't believe us." "Why would they? We've been here for months, building homes, making friends. And now we're going to tell them we're leaving because of some threat they've never heard of? They'll believe us when we show them the data," Jiwon said. "The evidence is clear." "Evidence of what?" So-hyun challenged. "We've never actually seen them, Jiwon. We've only seen what they leave behind. Empty systems. Dead worlds. We're asking the Vareth to abandon their home based on echoes and shadows." Hyuk understood her frustration. It was the same conversation they'd had on a dozen other worlds. "We show them what we have. We explain what we know. And then we leave with or without them, just like always." 2 hours later, Hyuk stood before the Vareth Council in their grand chamber. Elder Thessia and her fellow council members watched him with expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. Tikresh was there too, invited as an expert observer due to her investigation into human activities. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice," Hyuk began. "I have information that affects the safety of Vareth Prime and all who live here. What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible. You will want to doubt it, but I ask that you review the evidence before making your judgment." He activated his portable display, projecting the same star chart that his crew had seen. The red mass was clearly visible, moving through space like a cancer spreading through healthy tissue. 6 months ago, when we first arrived, we were honest about wanting friendship and trade, but we were not completely honest about why we came. We came because we were running. We have been running for a very long time. Elder Thessia leaned forward. "Running from what, Commander Hyuk?" "We call them devourers," Hyuk said quietly. "We've never seen them directly. No one who has seen them has lived to report it. But we've seen what they leave behind. Empty star systems, planets stripped down to their cores, entire civilizations gone." He changed the display to show images of dead worlds, barren rocks floating in space where thriving planets should have been, debris fields where space stations once orbited, silence where there should have been life. These images were taken by human survey ships over the past 300 years. Each one shows a different system, a different world. All of them have one thing in common. They were alive before the Devourers came and dead afterward. One of the council members, a younger Vareth named Kiroth, spoke up. "This is impossible. We would have heard of such a threat. The galactic community would know." "The galactic community has never faced them," Hyuk replied. "They move slowly, taking decades or centuries to cross between major population centers. By the time they arrive, warning signs are dismissed as myth or exaggeration, and by the time people believe, it's too late to run." Tikresh studied the data carefully, her analytical mind processing the information. "These dead systems, they form a path, a direction of movement." "Yes," Hyuk confirmed. "We've been tracking them for generations, plotting their course, staying ahead of their advance. 300 years ago, they were approaching Earth. We evacuated. Since then, we've moved from world to world, never staying long enough to be caught. And now they are here," Elder Thessia said, her voice heavy with understanding. "That is why you build the way you do, why you are always prepared to leave. You have been expecting this." "We had hoped we had more time," Hyuk admitted. "We always hope. But yes, we were prepared. We're always prepared." He took a breath before continuing. "In 5 days, maybe 6, they will reach Vareth Prime. I cannot force you to believe me. I cannot make you leave your home. But I am offering you a choice. Come with us. We have ships. We have supplies. We can take as many as want to come." The council chamber erupted in argument. Some members demanded proof. Others called for immediate evacuation. Still others refused to believe that such a threat could exist without more warning. During the chaos, Tikresh approached Hyuk quietly. "The patterns I observed, the construction, the preparations, it was all for this, yes. How many worlds have you lost to them?" Hyuk's expression was haunted. "We stopped counting after the first 20. Earth was the biggest loss. 15 billion people. We evacuated maybe 2 million. The rest..." He didn't finish the sentence. Tikresh felt a chill run through her exoskeleton. "And you came here anyway. You built homes, made friends, knowing you would have to leave." "We tried to warn you the only way we could," Hyuk said. "By showing you how to build strong. By teaching you to store supplies. By helping you develop faster ships and better communications. We couldn't tell you outright without causing panic. But we tried to prepare you." "It wasn't enough," Tikresh said. "It never is." The council meeting lasted 3 more hours. In the end, they agreed to issue a general evacuation warning, though many council members remained skeptical. Elder Thessia, however, believed. She had seen the fear in Hyuk's eyes, the exhaustion in his voice. This was not a deception. This was the truth of a species that had learned to survive at any cost. Down in the human settlement, Suhyun activated the evacuation protocols. Alarms didn't sound. There was no need for panic yet. But messages went out to every human on Vareth Prime. The code phrases they had all memorized. The signals they had all been taught to recognize. It was time to go. Minji received the message in her garden. She stood among her plants, looking at the work of 6 months, and felt tears on her cheeks. She had known this day would come. She had prepared for it, but it never got easier. Tajan walked through the residential complex he had designed, touching the walls, remembering the care that had gone into every detail. In 5 days, the Devourers would tear it all apart, reducing it to raw materials. All his work, all his effort would be erased. Sangwoo gathered the human children from the school, organizing them calmly, keeping them from being afraid. Many had Verath friends. They didn't understand why they had to leave so suddenly. He didn't have the heart to tell them that their friends might not survive. In orbit, the Endeavor's cargo bays opened. Smaller ships began docking, loading supplies, preparing for departure. The human fleet scattered across the system began to converge on Verath Prime. They moved with practiced efficiency, following procedures that had been refined over centuries of emergency evacuations. Yunho found Tikresh at her trading post. She was frantically packing her most valuable goods. "You believe," he said, surprised. "I've seen the data. I've heard the testimony. And I've seen the fear in human eyes." She looked at him. "You're terrified. All of you. People don't maintain that level of fear for 300 years unless the threat is real. We have room on our ships," Yunho offered. "For you and any Quillari who want to come. I've already sent messages to my people. Some will come. Many won't. They'll think I'm insane." She sealed another container. "Maybe I am, but I'd rather be a living fool than a dead skeptic." The next 4 days passed in a blur of activity. The humans loaded their ships with surprising speed, leaving behind most of their infrastructure but taking everything essential. Food stores, medical equipment, manufacturing tools, seeds, data archives, everything needed to start over somewhere else. Some Verath chose to evacuate. Not many, but some. Elder Thessia was among them, along with a small group who trusted her judgment. Kirath and many others refused, convinced that the threat was exaggerated or non-existent. Tikresh watched as the human ships prepared to depart. She had convinced several hundred Quillari to join the evacuation, along with a handful of other species. They looked at the humans with new understanding. These were not conquerors or colonists. They were survivors, refugees from an enemy that never stopped, never slowed, never showed mercy. As the final ships loaded, Hayuk stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, looking down at Verath Prime one last time. It was a beautiful world. The Verath had been kind hosts. In another universe, humanity might have stayed here, built a real home, lived in peace. But that was not the universe they lived in. "All ships report ready for departure," Deho announced. The evacuation began at dawn. The human ships descended in perfect formation, landing at designated points throughout the settlement. There was no chaos, no panic. Every human knew exactly what to do. They had practiced this drill countless times on countless worlds. Minji moved through her garden one final time, selecting seeds from the plants she had cultivated. She packed them carefully in sealed containers designed to preserve them through the journey ahead. These seeds represented months of work, but more importantly, they represented hope. Wherever the fleet went next, these plants would grow again. A young Verath girl named Sela watched from the fence. She and Minji had become friends, spending hours together learning about different plants. "You're really leaving?" Sela asked, her voice small. Minji knelt beside her. "We have to, but I want you to have something." She handed Sela a small plant in a pot. "This is from Earth, my home planet. Take care of it, okay? Remember me when you look at it." "I don't want you to go," Sela said, tears forming in her large eyes. Minji hugged her tightly. "I don't want to go either. But sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do." She didn't tell Sela what was coming. The child would learn soon enough. Across the settlement, similar scenes played out. Humans saying goodbye to Verath friends. Children crying as they were separated from playmates. Promises to stay in touch that everyone knew would be impossible to keep. Tajan supervised the final structural scans of all human buildings. Not to preserve them, that was impossible, but to document them. Every human structure was recorded in detail, every innovation and improvement cataloged. This data would be used when they built again on the next world. Each evacuation taught them something new about how to build better, how to leave faster. All residential areas cleared, Deho reported through the communication system. Moving to Phase 2. Phase 2 meant dismantling the portable equipment. Power generators, water purifiers, medical scanners, anything that could be moved was being loaded onto ships. What couldn't be moved was being destroyed. The humans had learned long ago not to leave useful technology behind. The Devourers could absorb and repurpose anything they found. Sangwoo worked at the cultural center, helping coordinate the evacuation of the Varath who had chosen to come with them. Elder Thesia stood calm and dignified, but many of her followers were frightened. They had never left Varath Prime before. The idea of abandoning their homeworld was almost too much to bear. "Where will we go?" one Varath asked nervously. "To a place humans have already surveyed," Sangwoo explained patiently. "A safe system where we can rebuild. You'll be guests in the fleet until then. We'll take care of you." "Why are you doing this?" another Varath demanded. "Why help us when you could just save yourselves?" Sangwoo paused, considering the question. "Because we remember what it was like when no one helped us. When Earth fell, we were alone. We had to figure everything out ourselves. We lost so many people, too many. If we can save others from experiencing that, we will." Tikresh boarded the Endeavor with a group of Quillari refugees. She carried only 2 bags, one containing her most valuable trade goods, the other holding personal items and data archives. Everything else she left behind. Yunho met her at the airlock. "Welcome aboard. I'll show you to your quarters." As they walked through the ship's corridors, Tikresh observed everything with her analytical eyes. The Endeavor was not a new ship. The walls showed signs of repair. The floors were worn from countless footsteps, and the whole vessel had the feel of something that had been lived in for a very long time. "How old is this ship?" she asked. "The Endeavor herself is about 70 years old," Yunho replied. "But many of her components are much older. We rebuild and repair constantly. Some parts of this ship contain metal from Earth itself, salvaged and reused over and over." "A ship of memories," Tikresh said softly. "All our ships are. We carry our history with us because we have no permanent home to preserve it in." The quarters assigned to the refugees were small but comfortable. Tikresh noticed that human crew quarters were even smaller. The humans gave up their own space to accommodate the evacuees. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes about their character. On the bridge, Hyuk monitored the evacuation progress. Numbers scrolled across his screen. Ships loaded, personnel accounted for, supplies secured. Everything was proceeding on schedule. 300 years of practice had made them terrifyingly efficient at running away. "Commander," Jiwon called from her station, "long-range sensors are detecting increased activity from the anomaly." "It's accelerating." Hyuk's jaw tightened. "New timeline? 4 days instead of 5. Maybe less. Alert all ships. Accelerate the evacuation. We leave in 36 hours, ready or not." The order went out and the pace increased. Humans moved faster, worked harder. There was no complaint, no argument. They understood. When the Devourers came, they came fast at the end. Down on the surface, Kiroth stood in the Varath Council chamber, with those who had refused to evacuate. He watched through the large windows as human ships loaded and departed one by one. "They're really leaving," he said. "All of them." "Let them go," another council member said dismissively. "They're overreacting to censor ghosts and ancient legends. Varath Prime has stood for 10,000 years. It will stand for 10,000 more." But Kiroth felt doubt growing in his mind. The humans were not stupid. They were not cowards. If they were willing to abandon months of work, to leave behind homes and investments, there had to be a reason. A real reason. He watched Elder Thesia's ship lift off, joining the growing fleet in orbit. She believed. Why? What did she see that he didn't? On the Endeavor, Minji helped settle refugee families into their temporary quarters. The children were crying, frightened by the sudden change. She sat with them, telling them stories about Earth, about the other worlds humanity had visited. She made it sound like an adventure rather than a desperate flight for survival. "Will we ever go home?" a Varath child asked. Minji wanted to say yes. She wanted to promise that this was temporary, that they would return to Varath Prime someday. But she had learned long ago not to make promises she couldn't keep. "Maybe," she said instead. "But wherever we go, we'll make it home. That's what humans do. We make home wherever we are." Teijin completed his final survey of the settlement. Every building documented, every innovation recorded. The data would help them build better on the next world. It always did. Each evacuation taught them something new, made them more efficient, more prepared. He stood in the central plaza, looking at the community center he had designed. It was beautiful, incorporating both human and Varath architectural styles. In a few days it would be rubble. In a few weeks even the rubble would be gone, consumed and recycled by the Devourers. It's never easy, is it? Soo-hyun said, joining him. No, you'd think it would get easier after so many times, but it doesn't. Because we care, Soo-hyun said. We build real homes, make real friends. We don't just create temporary camps. That's what keeps us human. That's what makes us fools, Taejin replied. But there was no real bitterness in his voice. They both knew the alternative was worse. To stop caring, to stop building, to stop making connections. That would be a different kind of death. 36 hours after the order was given, the last human ship lifted off from Vareth Prime. The settlement stood empty, a ghost town of sturdy buildings and well-maintained streets. Gardens bloomed with no one to tend them. Schools sat silent, waiting for children who would never return. In orbit, the human fleet gathered. 67 ships of various sizes carrying 8,000 humans and nearly 2,000 refugees from other species. The Endeavour took position at the center of the formation, coordinating the fleet's movements. All ships report ready for departure, Daiho announced. Hyuk looked at the tactical display. The red mass representing the Devourers was clearly visible now, close enough that even basic sensors could detect it. They were out of time. Plot a course for waypoint Gamma 7, he ordered. Maximum speed. Let's not be here when they arrive. The fleet turned as one, aligning for the jump to faster-than-light travel. In his quarters, Yunho watched through a viewport as Vareth Prime fell away behind them. The 3 moons were visible, hanging in space like purple pearls. It really was a beautiful world. Tikresh joined him at the window. What happens to those who stayed behind? Yunho's expression was bleak. In 4 days, the Devourers will arrive. They'll spread across the planet like a plague. The Vareth will try to fight it first. It won't matter. Nothing stops them. By the end of the week, Vareth Prime will be silent. By the end of the month, it will be stripped down to the core. And there's nothing we can do? We tried. We warned them. We offered to take them with us. Some listened. Most didn't. He turned away from the window. That's all we can do. Keep moving, keep surviving, and hope that someday we find a way to stop them permanently. The fleet engaged their FTL drives in sequence, each ship vanishing into the strange space between stars. The Endeavour was the last to jump. As the engines powered up, Hyuk took one final look at Vareth Prime. I'm sorry, he whispered to the planet and the people they were leaving behind. We tried. Then the Endeavour jumped and Vareth Prime was alone. 3 days after the evacuation, the Devourers arrived at Vareth Prime. The first indication was a disruption in the planet's communication satellites. They simply stopped broadcasting. Their signals cut off mid-transmission. Then the orbital defense platforms went silent. Then the space stations. The Vareth on the surface looked up at their sky and saw it changing. Dark shapes moved between the stars, too many to count. They didn't look like ships. They looked like a swarm, like insects spreading across a carcass. Kiroth stood in the council chamber with the remaining leaders, watching the sensor displays with growing horror. What are they? He breathed. They're not showing up as ships, a technician reported, voice shaking. They're reading as biological, living things. But they're massive. Some are the size of small moons. Attempt communication, Kiroth ordered, though dread filled his heart. He finally understood why the humans had run, why Elder Thessia had believed. The communication attempt received no response. The Devourers were not interested in talking. The first wave reached the planet's atmosphere within hours. They descended like rain, millions of individual organisms working as one. When they touched down, they began to feed. The Vareth tried to fight. They deployed weapons, launched missiles, organized their military forces. Nothing worked. The Devourers absorbed energy weapons, adapted to kinetic strikes, and consumed everything they touched. Buildings dissolved as the swarm passed through them. Forests were stripped bare in minutes. The beautiful purple landscape turned gray and dead. A young Vareth soldier named Telith fired his weapon until it overheated, watching in disbelief as the creatures he shot simply absorbed the energy and grew larger. Fall back, his commander screamed. Everyone fall back to the shelters. But there was nowhere to fall back to. The Devourers were everywhere. They moved through the cities like a tide, breaking down matter at the molecular level, processing it, incorporating it into their collective mass. Vareth who couldn't run fast enough were caught and dissolved, their bodies becoming raw materials for the swarm. Kiroth managed to reach an underground bunker with a handful of survivors. They sealed the doors and huddled in the darkness, listening to the sounds of their world dying above them. "We should have listened," Kairoth said, his voice hollow. "The humans knew. They tried to warn us, and how long do we have?" someone asked. The answer came not from Kairoth but from the bunker's sensors. The Devourers were already eating through the ground above them. They would reach the bunker within hours. Far away in deep space, the human fleet traveled at maximum speed toward waypoint Gamma 7. Tikresh stood in the Endeavor's observation deck with other refugees, watching the stars stream past. Behind them, invisible at this distance, Verith Prime was dying. "Can you see it from here?" a Quillari refugee asked. "What's happening to our worlds?" "No," Tikresh replied. "We're too far away, but the long-range sensors can detect it." She had seen the data. She had watched the sensor readings as Verith Prime's energy signatures began to fade, replaced by something else, something alien and hungry. Jiwan found her there. The human science officer looked exhausted, her eyes red from lack of sleep. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For your loss. For all the losses, how do you bear it?" Tikresh asked. "How do you watch worlds die and keep going?" Jiwan was silent for a long moment. "We remember. We document everything. Every world we've lost, every person who didn't make it. We carry them with us." She gestured to the ship around them. "The Endeavor's memory banks contain the histories of 1,000 worlds. Art, music, literature, scientific discoveries. We preserve what we can. But you keep moving forward. How? Because stopping means death. If we give up, if we let grief paralyze us, then the Devourers win. So we move, we survive, and we hope that somewhere ahead, we'll find a way to fight back." In his quarters, Hyuk reviewed reports from the fleet. All ships had made the jump successfully. Casualties were minimal. A few injuries during the hasty evacuation, nothing serious. Food stores were adequate for 3 months. Water recycling systems were functioning properly. Morale was low but stable. It was, by human standards, a successful evacuation. He pulled up historical records, adding Verith Prime to the list of worlds lost. The list was long, too long. Each entry represented a place humanity had lived, people they had befriended, cultures they had witnessed and documented before the Devourers erased them. Earth was at the top of the list, always. The homeworld, 15 billion people. Most of humanity's history and culture, lost in the span of a month. The survivors had fled in whatever ships they could build or steal, scattering across the galaxy in a desperate bid for survival. That was 300 years ago. The original refugees were long dead, but their descendants carried the memory, the trauma, the knowledge that nowhere was safe for long. A chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," Elder Thesia entered. She moved slowly, her forearms held close to her body in a gesture of grief. "Commander Hyuk, I wanted to thank you for saving those of us who believed you. I wish we could have saved more. As do I. I have been thinking about my people, about Kairoth and the others who stayed behind." Her voice shook. "They're dead now, aren't they?" Hyuk couldn't lie to her. "Yes, I'm sorry." Thesia lowered herself into a chair. "I knew, I just needed to hear someone say it." She looked up at him. "What happens now? Where do we go?" "To a system we surveyed 2 years ago. Class M planet, stable star, no indigenous intelligent life. We'll establish a new settlement there. Build new homes. Start over. And when the Devourers find us again, we'll run again. That's what we do." "For how long? Forever?" Hyuk sat down across from her. "I don't know. 300 years ago, humanity's best scientists, our greatest military leaders, our most brilliant minds all worked together to find a way to stop the Devourers. They failed. Every weapon we developed was useless. Every strategy was defeated. The only thing that worked was running. So there's no hope?" Thesia asked. "I didn't say that." Hyuk pulled up a star chart. "Look at this. 300 years ago, humanity numbered 15 billion. Today, we number maybe 10 million scattered across 20 different fleets. We've lost worlds, lost lives, lost almost everything. But we're still here. Still surviving. Still learning." He zoomed in on a section of the map. "Every fleet keeps searching. We study the Devourers from a distance. We analyze their patterns, their behavior, their biology. Somewhere in all that data, there might be an answer, a weakness, a way to fight back. And if there isn't, then we keep running. Because as long as we're alive, there's a chance. The moment we stop, the moment we give up, humanity dies. And I'm not ready to let that happen. In the refugee quarters, Minji organized activities for the children. Human and Verith children sat together, drawing pictures, telling stories, trying to process the trauma of sudden evacuation. She had done this before on other worlds after other flights. The children were resilient. They adapted faster than adults. Sella, the young Verith girl, drew a picture of her home. The purple forests, the 3 moons, the city where she had lived. Minji sat beside her, watching. "Is my family really gone?" Sella asked quietly. Minji wanted to lie to spare her the pain. But children deserved honesty. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm so sorry." Sella's hands shook as she continued drawing. "Elder Thessia said I'm part of the Fleet family now." "Is that true?" "Yes, we take care of each other. That's what families do." Minji put her arm around the girl. "It's not the same as the family you lost. Nothing ever will be. But you're not alone." Similar conversations happened throughout the fleet. Refugees trying to understand what they had lost, what they had survived, what came next. The humans helped where they could, drawing on 3 centuries of experience with grief and survival. Tajin worked with Verith engineers, teaching them how to adapt their skills to life on a fleet. How to maintain ships in deep space, how to build quickly and efficiently, how to design structures that could be abandoned at a moment's notice if necessary. Sangwoo counseled refugees dealing with survivor's guilt. He knew that feeling well. Every human did. The question always came, why did I survive when others didn't? There was never a good answer. Yunho and Tikresh stood together in the observation deck watching the stars. "I want to fight them," Tikresh said suddenly. "The Devourers. I want to find a way to make them pay for what they took from us." "So do we all," Yunho replied. "Every human has lost someone, lost many someones. But wanting to fight and being able to fight are different things. The humans must have tried to fight. In 300 years you must have tried something. We've tried everything. Nuclear weapons, antimatter bombs, biological agents, nanotechnology, directed energy weapons. We've tried poisoning planets so the Devourers would die when they consumed them. We've tried luring them into stars. We've tried communicating with them, reasoning with them, offering them alternatives to consumption." Yunho's voice was flat, reciting a litany of failures. Nothing worked. They adapt to every weapon. They ignore every attempt at communication. They have only one purpose: to consume. Then we find something you haven't tried yet. Yunho looked at her with something like hope. "Maybe. You and your people are smart. Different perspectives might see something we've missed. That's one reason we try to save others."